So to start, we will look at skills, and to introduce the skills and really set the context for skills and skills in energy transition, I'm pleased to welcome to the stage Mr. Paul Leeuw, who's the Director of the Energy Transition Institute at Robert Gordon University and is also the current chair of the National Energy Skills Accelerator. So Paul's going to cover off how UK energy workforce transferability and the review and the work that was done by RGU last year. So Paul, if you want to take your place.
Thank you very much. There's still a few people standing there. Please come forward, don't be shy, because otherwise I come and find you. Brilliant, can you hear me all right? Fantastic. Right, let's see if this is going to work. Okay. Brilliant, thank you very much. So as Andy said, my name is Paul Leeuw. Work at Robert Gordon University with a couple of my colleagues here. So we've done a lot of work in the skills space, but really looking at the future of jobs. And that is actually what I think is hugely important, because when we start thinking about what's going to come up in the next so many years, this is not about a particular subject, it's not about what we're going to do in the industry, this is about actually what are we collectively going to do. And there's not the people who sit next to you, this is about you. So before I start, and thank you, if the lights go up a little bit more so I can see everybody. So can you just quickly put your hand up? Who's going to still work in 2030? Put your hand up. I'll do my hand as well. So that's the, oh, you're not. Why not? You're retired, you're not working either? Oh, you are, changed your mind, excellent.
No, I just didn't catch the question.
Are you still working by 2030? Okay, so the vast majority. Anybody who's not working? Because? Retired, excellent, excellent. Right, who did, for the people put their hands up, how many of you do you think you already have the skills to be successful in 2030? Just put your hands up if you think you're successful, already have the skills. All right, a couple of people. Why? Keep your hands up. Why?
I'm futuristic. I think about future.
Futuristic, future. You have the skills.
So what's the question?
Why do you think they already have the skills for 2030? Okay, to continue learning.
I guess the most important skill is continue learning, but I'm coming from computer science world. I can do code.
Okay, so computer science already. Was somebody here as well who thinks have the skills?
I'm a driver, no problem.
Love it, love it. Right, so this conversation, you probably get a flavor, is about you and about jobs. But I do need to do some context first. And let's think about what is actually going to happen in the industry. Now, this is about the changing dynamics, what we're going to see. Behind me here is the latest update from the UK government in the energy security strategy published just over 2.5 weeks ago. So those who've seen it, Prime Minister, most of the cabinet came out big way around on the back of the horrible situation in Ukraine, all the difficulties, we need to change our energy security. What's happening? A massive, massive increase in the capacity of wind, massive increase in hydrogen, massive increase in carbon capture and storage, and a declining oil and gas industry. And again, probably nothing new, because we need to get to an outcome where renewables is going to be a fundamental part of the portfolio, fundamental part of what you and your colleagues are going to do. But let me just put it into context, because actually this is going to be the decade of wind, particularly offshore wind. To deliver these targets, so 40 gigawatt increase, which is absolutely ginormous. Basically, there's about currently around 40 gigawatts of offshore wind in the world. We're going to have to kind of do the whole thing again, but just in the UK, of what has already been installed in the world. That requires us to do a new installation of a wind turbine every single day between now and 2030. It's actually more, 1.1, 1.2 wind turbine installations every day. This is manufacturing energy generation capacity at the scale you see at a manufacturing plant. We have never done something like this. Fundamentally shift. Now, where is all that electricity going? It mainly goes towards the electricity grid. It replaces the gas we currently burn, and it's going to be replaced by wind generation. So that's one of the reasons why oil and gas is going down. We don't need as much for our heating. So for electricity, we still need it for heating and for other things. So we see a fundamental shift happening, and that has a huge, huge implication of what we all going to do in our jobs. And that's why I was so interested how many of you are working. Oh, then we're going to get invited to your retirement party. Is that what you were saying? Yeah, fantastic. But this is about how we position ourselves for success, because the vast majority of us actually already have the skills, but we need to tweak it a little bit over time. So let me give you a flavor where we think is happening. At this point in time, plus or minus a bit, roughly 150, 160,000 of us, all of us, work in the offshore energy industry, oil and gas, wind, CCUS, and the kind of hydrogen space. You can see a big number, the vast majority actually in oil and gas. Anybody who's not working in oil and gas here? Or not worked on oil and gas? A couple of people here, but you can see the vast majority are linked somewhere to the oil and gas industry. So great. You're going to be my new best friends, by the way. You don't know that yet. Fantastic. So a lot of money is going to be spent. And think about investment drives activity, activity drives people, right? That's how the equation roughly works. By the time you get to the back end of this decade, we forecast somewhere around 200,000 people to work in the offshore energy industry, more than we currently have to deliver that agenda has been sent out by the UK government. So if you want to deliver these targets, you need the people to do the work. But a few things to note, although it's an increase of about 40,000 people, the mix is completely different. So currently, it really is predominantly, as you can see, oil and gas, 80-20 rule, 80% work on oil and gas, 20% on other energies. By the time we get the back end of the decade, which is only just over 8 years away, we think that actually the equation is going to shift. Around 2 out of 3 people in the industry are going to work for the renewables industry. So look around the room, 2 out of 3 people will actually work for a different sector. You already have that, you're fine. But for all of us, this is going to potentially mean some quite big changes, right? Because we are not becoming oil and gas professionals, whatever specifically do. We become energy professionals. We're going to work on a different thing. And that means we need to get you ready because that's not a very long period of time. So big shift happening. So what is it going to mean in terms for the workforce itself? Complicated chart, but I'll explain it. The box here, the big box, is the 200,000 people. And what we have split them here is by specific job family. So we can look at how is the energy transition kind of affect people working in the industry. So a job family is like-minded jobs. So if you're in HR, you can be an HR director, HR manager, HR advisor, you're all in the HR job family. So what we find here, when you look at the future of work, is that the vast majority of us, you, your colleagues and others, are going to actually either build things, build new wind farms, build new CCUS plants, build new hydrogen plants, build new pipelines, install things. So you can see we need a bucket load of people in operations, technicians, engineering and projects to kind of build that new energy future for the UK. Replumbing, rewiring the offshore basin here. This is not a decline of the North Sea. This is a kind of repurposing of the basin to make it far more energy friendly, far more green, and far more focused on the energy we're actually going to need in the future. Now we need support because of course we need more people. There's a lot of people shifting, so we need more HR people. We need commercial people because all the new activities need to happen. And of course we need also supply chain and procurement people. We're going to have to buy all this equipment and make sure that all the contracts are in place. So if you think about you're going to have an easy 8 years, no, it's going to be very different. It shifts fundamentally, but it's going to create big opportunities. Now this, of course, assumes we deliver the ambitions set out by government and industry. If we don't, of course, the picture looks very different. And that's where the big opportunity comes in, but also the big challenge is about how we create it. Now, digital skills are going to go everywhere. I call it omnipresent, because actually this is going to be an agenda around how we completely change things around. So what you learned and heard about this morning, what you've seen in the exhibition next door, absolutely critical, because we need all of that to kind of being a world-class energy basin and do things very differently. So far, are you still with me? Anybody lost the plot, want to leave? You still with me? You are so positive before. Still there, right. You're still positive? Fantastic, love it. Right, so I'm going to give you an example because I told you this is a decade of wind. So wind is going to be huge and really, really, really important. So what I want to do, this is not my slide. This comes from the International Renewables Energy Agency, IRENA, done in 2018. So it's a little bit out of date, but it tells a lovely, lovely, lovely story. And the reason I want to show you is what does it take to build a wind farm? Because we talk about it, we assume everybody knows. But actually it's quite interesting. When you look at the picture, actually what we find here is very different than building an oil and gas industry. So the moment, actually the majority of people in oil and gas work on operating activities, OPEX type stuff, and there's another group of people who work on CAPEX, building a new group of facilities or decommissioning or take things away. Actually wind is very different because wind, the vast majority, will start working potentially for vocational trades, actually building wind farms. You can see 60% of the workforce will work around building things. And a far smaller group will actually be operating it. And you can look at yourself, those who live here, you can go to Aberdeen Beach, and you can see the wind farms, hardly anybody working there. This is going to be a very different business. It's going to be CapEx-led and different elements of technology. So when you think about the technology equation, actually when you influence it is now, before you build it, rather than when it's already in place. And of course for operations it's going to be quite key. So we now start thinking about what you currently do and how you position for that new world, because this is where a huge amount of the new money is going to go. Again, make sense? So this is the operation side. So I just take a slice out of that, what it takes to operate it. And that gives you a flavor what kind of skills and capabilities you're going to need. We still need, of course, the technicians. So if you're a technician currently working in the oil and gas industry, you're actually going to do a very similar job on wind. You might need a bit of training, but actually isn't that different, right? So we're not talking about 3 years of retraining. It's anywhere from a couple of weeks to 10 weeks of actually getting yourself ready. We need people, again, who can operate it. We need the crews on the ships to get people to the right place. We need all the other admin support, legal, helicopters, all that stuff that we already, to some extent, have in the oil and gas industry. So we start thinking about it. We actually already have a huge amount of this capability right here, and particularly the northeast of Scotland, to be ready to, on our doorstep, to kind of develop this new industry. So if you want to have a starting point for capabilities, skills, jobs, we can't start from a better position than we currently have here in the United Kingdom. But what is going to happen, that's why I think is a little example of what my colleagues are doing in the National Subsea Centre, we're going to have to start moving huge amounts of people from task to task to task, right? The planning of how we interact between oil and gas, wind, carbon capture and storage, all the other activities coming in, is going to require a level of planning we have never done before. So absolutely delighted there's a project going on. My colleague from the National Subsea Centre is here. Wave, give a wave. Fantastic. So if you want anything, Ryan can help you out. Ryan Gordon from the National Subsea Centre. But around how do we kind of be smarter around using technology, algorithms to do planning, making sure that we have the right staff at the right time, completely trained, available, which I think is a really powerful way of start thinking about is how we start thinking holistically about what we do with the workforce. The other thing is, of course, is you've heard me talk about the demand story. We need a huge amount of people of a certain skill from a certain type of discipline. And that's great. And everybody goes like, oh my goodness, how am I going to prepare for that, right? So you think about what's your plan, what you're going to do. I know what you're going to do, you just told me, but other people are going to do about how do you plan for this? And so we have actually we need to put mechanisms in place to make sure that on the supply side, there is a quicker way to get there so that companies can go saying, I need to train 500 people or I need 2,000 people and get them ready for the future rather than each individual has to do it for themselves. So we set something up with a catchy title as the National Energy Skills Accelerator. And what it does is really in the title. I don't have to explain it. It's national, it's about energy, it's about skills, it's about you accelerating what you already have. Because again, when I ask the question, how many of you have the skills for the future? It's quite hard to put your hand on it if you have, because you don't know what the future really holds. So you need to have some helping hand to get there. And that's why we set up the Skills Accelerator, which is a combination of the two universities here in Aberdeen, the college, Skills Development Scotland and Energy Transition Zone. So it's a hugely powerful combination of actually getting organizations together which have probably together 50 years plus legacy in this industry to saying is how do we prepare the next generation of oil and gas professionals. That goes against everything. That's not just about digital skills. It's about the business skills, the engineering skills, the logistics, supply chain, all the kind of skills that go with it. Hugely important. And the reason we do it is actually, if you think about it, the majority of you, your colleagues, still be in the industry by 2030. This is not a conversation about somebody else. This is a conversation about you and your family, your friends, the people around you. And we need to start thinking about it because actually this is about individual responsibility to get it right. The other thing we found, and we published last year, is that the vast majority, 90% of you, already have medium-high transferability to another sector. So if you think about your skills, are they ready? The answer is, for most people, they are. Now, that's not for everybody, right? And I'll give you a very practical example. We are, as the oil and gas goes down, we are going to drill fewer wells in this basin. Yeah, very logical because we don't need all the oil and gas. So if you're in, for example, the drilling community or the wells community, we are going to do less activity, kind of fewer activity, less investment, will means we need fewer people. But these people are extraordinarily well educated, extraordinarily well capable to move to other sectors. It could be CCUS wells, it could be geothermal, it could be other activities overseas. So again, we need the skills, but we might not necessarily need them exactly as we currently formulated in that way. And we have real clarity around what are the job families affected and how do we make sure we kind of reposition that for success. The last thing I want to say is and one more question if I can ask you that. Who calls himself an oil and gas professional? Can you put your hands up? Oil and gas professional? Anybody? Nobody is an oil and gas professional. Who feels is an energy professional? Ooh, couple people. Hold on. You feel energy because?
Because the oil and gas is transitioning into an energy.
Okay, so you feel already transitioned. Gentleman in the back, you said as well?
Always been energy.
Always been energy. Yourself? Okay, so you already made the shift. This is very interesting because as an industry, we need to help our colleagues who are actually not as close to the subject as you are, who haven't had the benefit of hearing stories like this. Can we please help them to manage that change? Because we need all the skills, there's room for all, need for all. We need to help people to manage the transition. Again, part of what we do with National Energy Skills Accelerator. Conscious of time, I do one more slide before I summarize. We are going to give people more information. We are just at my colleague Simin, who's at the back here. Simin, give people a wave. We have been working very hard on the regional story. So what is this energy transition going to mean for people living in the northeast of Scotland? And I don't know who's from here, northeast of Scotland, but I certainly am, is around what is this going to mean for this region? So if you think about what I asked you, what you're going to do, but what is this region going to look like? So what we're currently preparing is the publication. It will tell you about the opportunities in the region if you get it right, but also talks about the consequences if we don't. And this is a joint kind of responsibility for us to think about how we need to start planning for this region, for this new energy future. It's going to be published during May, so watch out for it for the next couple of weeks. I'm sure it can be somewhere on the OGV website, LinkedIn, and it is about how we position this for success. So again, if you have time and energy for it, please read it. It probably gives you some quite interesting insight around where we think the future of work looks like for us. So, interest of time, before I hand it back to Andy to kick start the panel. This is about jobs. This is about skills. This is about preparing for the future. This is not your employer's responsibility. This is not anybody else's responsibility than for us as individuals to make sure we plan for it, but do it in a way where we set us up for success. If we get it right, there's an incredible future ahead of us. We're going to need more jobs, more skills, more opportunities, and longevity, which is going to sustain this basin for not just a couple of years, but unbelievably long time in terms of what we can do and also skills we can export. So we can build on the success of the past and to get it right. That requires a mindset shift. It requires to think about a different way. It requires the application of the technologies. I just looked next door around what we do. It requires what you do. It requires, follow these two gentlemen who are very positive about the future. So whenever you can bottle that and sell it to us, we would be delighted to have that, right? So thank you for being positive. But it's about that shift. So what I want to think about, just leave you with that thought is, this is about what you are going to do as individuals, what you're going to do as teams. Think about it. And if I can help, Simin can help, Ryan, my colleague from the National Subsea Centre can help, let us know. We'd be delighted to do so. I'm going to stop there and hand back to Andy. Thank you very much.